we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for having us here today. For those of you who flew down from Delhi, welcome to the Bangalore winters. I'm here with Dr. Rohini Srivathsa, who's been the CTO of Microsoft for how many years now? It's been about 7 years with Microsoft. Here's what we're going to be doing today through this session. We're going to be talking about essentially what it means to build big tech in India, how big tech is coming to the forefront of AI, but as well as how we can leverage some of these AI solutions for national technology. So, Rohini, let's kick off. One of the, I think.
Thank you for having me. You can hear me? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's try adjust the volume. What's that? All right. One of the things we often talk about is India having unique challenges, unique problems. So we say AI can solve problems, but the types of problems that AI is solving in India is very different. One of them specifically being multilingual AI. I don't think there's any country in the world as diverse as India is when it comes to language technology. Given that even at a government level, in terms of constituent languages, we have 22 languages and then so many different dialects. How does AI play a role in that? How do you see Microsoft's work towards adopting this diversity, as well as being able to solve some of the unique challenges for India?
No, I think, thanks first of all for the conversation. And we did have a very informative session in the first half. I think in many ways, India's language diversity is actually an opportunity. It is a challenge in some ways, but I think it's also an opportunity. And AI in particular gives a very unique moment to capture that opportunity. And when opportunity I mean is not just the 22 languages which are in our constitution, but the fact that the multiple dialects which go into the thousands across the country, each of those dialects have within them, within the language, within the culture, a depth of knowledge, depth of cultural context, history, poetry, literature, that is eons old. And I think that opportunity using technology to preserve that inherent knowledge, and in my mind, I'm thinking, for example, ancient wisdom of Ayurveda. Some of those are being rediscovered in parts of the world and patented oftentimes, right? So those are some of those very deep knowledge sources that AI now has and is starting to have the opportunity to preserve. But preserving is one part. At the end of the day, the ability for technology to make impact in people's lives on an everyday basis, on the here and now, is what counts. And there we are starting to see AI language capability in particular, since we're talking about language, play that role in ways that was not possible earlier. So give me, as an example, if you think about ASHA workers who go out in the field and engage with let's say, mothers who are about to have a baby or you have a young kid, their ability to have information, knowledge on their fingertips and be able to provide the guidance to people in their language is something that could not happen earlier. And I think that same idea can be taken, across multiple sectors. Now, as I was mentioning in my short presentation or short talk earlier, as an organization, Microsoft thinks of itself as a platform company. What that means is the ability for others, which means students, developers, startups, to leverage the platform to create solutions is where the platform shines. In fact, one of the one of the sayings that Bill Gates said at one time, that a platform is when the economic value created on the platform is many, many times more than the platform itself in terms of its economic value. Otherwise, it's not a platform. Sometimes platform, the word is used very openly, very generally speaking, right? But if the economic value created is not higher on the platform than the platform, then it's not a platform. But I think, to me, that is where the ability for people to leverage AI using a platform really comes through. And by the way, Microsoft technologies today support 20 out of the 22 Indian languages, which covers 95% of the India's population. But again, like I said earlier, the problem is much bigger in terms of dialects, etc. But let me pause with that. I think that is a fundamental part of what Microsoft thinks of our role in India's growth, in the economic growth, but not just economic, but inclusive and sustainable growth.
And while we're on that, we know that Microsoft historically has been at the forefront of technology. It continues to be at the forefront of building LLMs and AI technology as well. The only thing though this time is that AI is slightly unique as a technology. It's quite different from our software 2.0, those waves of era. With this new wave of technology that AI brings, how do we ensure a few things? Obviously effectivity of use cases, but then how do we ensure inclusive access? How do we ensure safety and security, trustworthy AI, for lack of a better word? And I know Microsoft has been looking a lot at that. Share some insights if you would.
Yeah. So AI is what is termed, and the term is general purpose technology, which means it is not just used by the tech world. It's pervading into every part of the economy, every segment, every section of society. That means that each one of us in our lives is today already using in many ways, but will increasingly leverage technology in a way that we may not even realize. It's like electricity. You don't think where that electricity came from. You turn on the switch and you want the electricity to be there. You don't expect it to, you don't know what was the way it was created, whether it was thermal or whether it was, coal powered or whatever, right? But you expect it to work. And it transforms everything. If you think about when electricity first came into the world, it transformed the way people's lives, industries, the way work happened, the work cycle, in every way. Now, because it is such a powerful general purpose technology, Microsoft has been conscious of the responsibility that a technology of this impact will have on society. So way back in 2016, 2017, our CEO Satya Nadella had written a blog that talked about the fact that this technology, in order to be responsible, in order to be trustworthy, will need to ensure that we are following a set of principles. And from then on, responsible AI has been a fundamental DNA of the way in which Microsoft builds AI, serves AI to our customers and partners and the ecosystem, as well as engages with governments in terms of thinking about policies around AI. The principles of AI, which are, of course, every organization has certain principles, but they are by and large, there's a lot of commonality between them. But the ones that we've been through this journey have been about inclusiveness, fairness, security and privacy, reliability and safety, accountability and transparency. And in some ways, if you think about, 8 odd years that these principles were outlined, and you think about where AI today, it makes me feel a certain sense of trust and pride that these principles still hold. They are the principles that I feel, okay, I'm standing on good ground. Now, of course, having principles is just the beginning. How do you take those principles to practice in an organization that works across more than 100 plus countries at a scale with developers, with customers, startups, that is where the real hard work happens, which is about taking those principles from just being principles into practice. And that has taken us down a journey of including tools and techniques, of making sure that people are trained both within the organization as well as in our customer and partner ecosystem and students ecosystem, as well as how governments are thinking about AI. And that journey of bringing together tools, people, practices, governance. By the way, governance in Microsoft for AI pretty much reports to the board of the company. So that kind of senior level ownership on what responsible AI means. Now today in the world of generative AI, I would say that the idea of responsible AI also includes elements of security, cybersecurity, privacy, and safety. True. So these work together because you cannot have AI which needs data to work on and be contextual and be relevant without being able to keep that data secure. So these become very interrelated. Similarly, if you are leveraging data to provide some kind of generative AI answers, whatever other data governance aspects of that data need to be honored by AI also. So these become very interrelated topics, and I feel that as an organization, because we invested in this space very early, when the whole AI ChatGPT moment came, we were actually ready. We were able to say, okay, we are ready, the platform is ready, we already have this part of our DNA as part of our policies, governance, practices, tools. So we are able to innovate at a scale and speed that is otherwise not possible.
You mentioned that Microsoft works alongside governments, both in policy making, but as well as public technology. Could you shine a little bit of light on that? Especially given the context that where BHASHINI went, BHASHINI has really been an innovator when it comes to translation services and enabling voice-first inclusion in a country like India. How would big tech, specifically Microsoft, work with governments in propelling this mission forward? Because if we really want to say that an ecosystem has to come together to solve problems, so that'll be government, that'll be NGOs, that'll be startups, but it'll also be the big tech ecosystem collectively innovating for India. So how does Microsoft work with public institutions, governments to build this public technology?
Yeah, I think, any general purpose technology like the one we are discussing, AI, it cannot be done by a single party. And if you go the history of BHASHINI, the way it evolved, very happy and proud to say that pretty early on when NGO Ekstep invested and supported the AI for Bharat work that started at IIT Madras, Microsoft Research was an integral part of that team, both in terms of expertise, people, and technology thinking, how to build this at scale. And I think that journey has continued over many, many years. I think we think of us as a propeller, if you will, or we think of us as an enabler in the ecosystem. Because the ability to create new technology is one thing, but the bigger aspect is the diffusion or adoption of that technology. Right. And that adoption happens not just by the government. Of course, the government is one stakeholder, and many things we are working on is with the government, including the India AI mission. But we work with startups, we work with the large organizations, we work with small, medium businesses in leveraging technologies like BHASHINI to grow, to become competitive, to become more efficient, to go global. Yeah. Right? All of these then require the ability to think at scale, ability to innovate with agility, and that's where Microsoft comes in. So if I give you the example of, and I personally have been part of the whole India's AI journey for many, many years now, and then as part of the think tanks, as part of expert groups, even formulating the thinking behind India AI mission, have been part of many of those working groups. And of course, now with India AI mission is on, and multiple work is happening. When Satya Nadella was here in January, we do have an MOU with India AI mission across all the 7 pillars of the mission.
Wow.
And we are working on the compute side of it, partnering with the likes of Yota. We are also working on many of the startup-related initiatives, skilling, centers of excellence. So it's a very broad-based partnership that we are playing with India AI mission, and I think it becomes a collaborative effort. And one last point, even before India AI mission, when some of the work was happening on responsible AI policies, our ability to bring in global thinking, and its ability to bring in what we know with an open and receptive and humble mindset to say, this is what we know, it's an evolving field, how can we learn together? And similarly for now India AI mission, one of our Microsoft research person is going to be on the Safety Institute,
nice.
Again sharing learning. So it is that collaborative effort.
Let me ask you this. So, knowing that India is somewhat of a voice-first country, we historically have found that technologies that adopt voice have the capacity to scale in a country like India. And then when you go out of the metro cities, that's needed more and more and more, especially as you access technology. Microsoft, especially the whole Azure stack, has been very, very innovative with the ASRs and TDS models that it's built out. What do you see as some of the advancements now going forward, at least both in a technology context, but in an Indian context of where do you see voice AI going? What do you see as the potential of it? Any exciting use cases that you have come across that really was an eye-opener or head-turner for you?
Yeah, so I'll give you, the speed of innovation in India. India is such a, how shall I say, grassroots level innovation country. So when the ChatGPT moment happened, if you recall, it was in November of 2022.
Yeah.
And just a few weeks later, our CEO was in India, and a few people from the NGO world and Microsoft world had created a demo for him to see, which was a PM Kisan Yojana, ability to access PM Kisan Yojana, using BHASHINI, using a voice interface, WhatsApp as the medium, and being able to connect using OpenAI with the PM Kisan Yojana's corpus and have a conversation, which means, as an example, that a farmer can ask in his or her native language what are the schemes the person is eligible for. And Satya Nadella called that his mic drop moment, because it was literally a few weeks that innovation had happened in another part of the world, and within that very short period of time, different components came together, speech to text, BHASHINI, OpenAI, WhatsApp, all of these came together to solve a real problem that is uniquely Indian, but very easily identified by anybody around the world. So Satya went around after that talking about this at the World Economic Forum, at every possible venue. And I recall a colleague of mine calling me from the US saying, what exactly is this? Because I have people calling me to understand my eligibility for medical schemes as part of US's healthcare benefits post the pandemic. Exactly same use case in a country that is, you would consider, developed and rich, etc., but very relatable, right? So I think the point I would make is that I think in India, and Nandan calls India the use case capital of the world, and I was telling Amitabh just now that it's so true that the kind of problems, the kind of challenges, the kind of opportunities, to be honest, that will come up in India, and looking at this audience as well, to solve real problems are going to become inspiration for the world. And I just give you the example of the PM Kisan that caught into somebody else who said, this is what my people need in the US to understand my healthcare benefits.
True. Given that we largely have a student audience today, let me go off script for just a second. if you were to go back to college and start all over again, what would you study? What would you be excited about in terms of your direction in technology? If you were to rewind the clock, how would you start all over again? Most of the students here in this room are participating in hackathons, figuring out their first internships, figuring out their career journey from the starting point. What advice would you give them?
In slightly lighter note, I'm very, very envious of all of you, to be honest. Very envious. Because when I was starting out, which was many, many years ago, any of these tools were not available. I mean, if you were to go into, like I went in my graduate school, I've actually coded backpropagation algorithm and actually have written down recurrent neural network training thing, and I would try to run it, and by the time I came in the morning, the thing would have crashed because there wasn't enough data or compute. I think the world that this group of students is living in is a world that is transformational. Now, it is very easy to get bogged down by the everyday changes of technology. What I would guide each one of you, whichever place you are coming from, is to remember that the adage, right, that we tend to overestimate in the short term the impact of technology, and we tend to underestimate its impact in the long term. What that means is understand and learn some of the capabilities, tools, techniques, but in a way that is applying to a problem. And I think that ability to think of problem solving, thinking of applying what you learn to solving problems is the approach I would take, rather than getting very bogged down by one particular kind of technology or one particular model or one particular wave, because this wave is the beginning. It is going to continue. Yeah. And the ability for students, for developers, for startups to understand the problem statements in depth and think of AI as a set of toolkits to solve that is where the ingenuity will actually lie.
Closing question, if that's okay. We'll go with one more. I was in an interview with Nandan about 2 months ago, and I asked him the question, given that we have such a powerful technology, where should we really deploy it? Where do we think about the use cases? What are the problems worth solving? The context is at least everyone here is participating in a hackathon, and they're figuring out problem statements. What are the solutions worth building that will actually make a difference in the world? What do you see as exciting problems worth solving? Either domains or use cases that you really feel are shifting the needle, not just a wrapper on top of a model, but meaningfully making a difference.
See, people ask this question, and of course, you asked Nandan this question, so I'm kind of
No, go for it.
going. I think a lot of people ask this point about, what about jobs? What about fair point? Jobs are changing, skills will change. But I think one important element, and I'll answer the point you're asking. I think technology is now making the frontier of what is possible expand. Let me give an example. Today and this is not even a very advanced example, today for an AI-based radiologist to do an early detection of an early signs of melanoma is there. Now, to me, that is one example of expansion of the market, expansion of the access to healthcare. One simple example, that was not possible earlier. I think our ability as a society to look at any domain and question what is now possible that was not even possible earlier, is where I would push. So today, for a student to have a private tutor in his or her language is not that far away, which was not possible. right? So I think something that Microsoft CTO said last year and has been sticking with me, that technology has now made what was impossible earlier merely difficult. It is not easy, but it is not impossible anymore. And I think that changes the universe, what you may call total available market or problem sets, but I think it changes the universe. And not just can solve, but see, the economics of this is such that the costs are going down exponentially.
True.
So just if you see very recently, Satya and Jensen Huang were talking about that in 2 years, the capability of AI has grown 40x. 40x. If you include the compute and the software, right? Yeah. That also comes along with an exponential drop in costs, which means the problems that we may think as very corner, a small population problems, actually are going to be economically viable to solve.
Yeah.
So that is the trend line we are seeing. And then you can pick your sector of passion, right? I think to me the sector of child health is of passion, education is of passion, but then I think the problems are out there.
And I love what you said. I think that is a brilliant way to close this conversation. Technology has made impossible things only difficult. And having said that, Dr. Rohini, thank you so much for spending this half an hour here at REVA University for the BHASHINI Hackathon. Ajay, we'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.